You see, history has a way of repeating itself, and those who don't learn from it are bound to fall, just like the ones before them. The Romans and the Persians, they were the superpowers of their time, mighty, wealthy, feared by the world. Their cities stood tall, their armies were vast, and their rulers sat on golden thrones. If you had told anyone back then that a group of desert dwellers, people with no kingdom, no wealth, and no powerful allies, would rise and shake the very foundations of these empires, they would have laughed in your face. But let me tell you something. Truth doesn't care about power. Justice doesn't bow to empires. And when a people believe in something greater than themselves, there is nothing that can stop them. Islam didn't spread because of greed. It didn't conquer because of swords alone. It conquered hearts. It conquered minds. It conquered systems of oppression that had enslaved people for centuries. The Romans and Persians, they were strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. Corruption ran through their leadership, injustice crushed their people, and their elites cared more about their luxury than their own soldiers. But Islam came with discipline, with unity, with a message that turned shepherds into scholars, merchants into warriors, and the oppressed into leaders. When the Muslim army stood on the battlefield, they weren't fighting for gold, for land, or for personal gain. They were fighting for truth. They were fighting for a world where justice ruled over tyranny, where a man wasn't judged by his lineage, but by his character. And when the battle began, it wasn't just steel against steel. It was belief against decay. It was a system built on faith against a system rotting from the inside. The Persian Empire, gone. The mighty Romans, broken. Not because they were weak, but because Islam gave its followers something stronger than fear: certainty. Certainty that death is not the end, that truth will always rise, and that a handful of believers with unshakable faith can do what the world calls impossible. That's not just history, that's a lesson. Because power never lasts, but the truth is eternal. They say the greatest victories aren't won with swords, but with conviction. In history has a way of proving that right. Look back at the world when Islam was just beginning. Two empires stood as untouchable giants: the Romans, ruling with wealth and might, stretching across lands where the sun barely set; the Persians, steeped in power, their kings demanding to be worshipped like gods. These weren't ordinary kingdoms. These were superpowers, forces no one dared to challenge. And yet, in the heart of the desert, a small band of believers, people with no gold, no castles, no armies of tens of thousands, were about to shake the world in a way no one saw coming. Islam wasn't just another movement. It was a revolution. It didn't rise through conquest alone. It rose through transformation. It didn't just tell people to pray. It told them to lead, to think, to rise. It took a world where kings and emperors believed they had the right to rule over people like gods, and replaced it with a system where the only true power belonged to the Creator. It gave the weak a voice, the oppressed a shield, and the ordinary man a place in history. And that's why the people followed it, not because of force, but because of truth. When the Muslim army stood against Persia, and they weren't just fighting soldiers, they were fighting an empire that had become corrupt from within, that had lost its soul, that had ruled through fear instead of justice. And when they faced the Romans, they weren't just taking on an army, they were dismantling a system that had long forgotten its own people, where wealth and status meant more than character and righteousness. The world didn't expect them to win. It didn't expect the message of Islam to spread so fast, to reach lands that had been ruled by the same hands for centuries. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't wait for the world to be ready. And when people truly believe in it, nothing, not swords, not wealth, not even empires, can stand in its way. That's the reality they don't want you to see. That's the truth that changed the world once before. And let me tell you something, truth never dies. Power, every empire in history has chased it, fought for it, killed for it. The Romans and the Persians were no different. They built their kingdoms on the backs of the weak, expanded their borders through war, and ruled with an iron fist. They thought they were untouchable, that their wealth, their armies, and their monuments would make them eternal, but power built on corruption never lasts. Strength without justice is just delayed failure. And when Islam rose from the deserts of Arabia, it wasn't just another kingdom coming for a piece of the world. It was a force that would rewrite history.